I sucked. Like, I had mastered Mary Had a Little Lamb. That was about it. And not the Stevie Ray Vaughan song. Like, that kind of stuff.
That brings me to another question. What gets you to this point in your music career? Now, you've been practicing instruments. I kind of steer away from the word playing because you've been practicing, probably your whole life. But Let's see, when did you start and what gets you here?
All right. I started around age 14. Around age 14 is when I got into like Iron Maiden, Anthrax, and Kiss.
Oh, that's dangerous.
I wanted to be a guitar player. I wanted to be the next Ace Frehley. I wanted to just noodle and shred. And my mom had an old Kalamazoo guitar laying around.
Ooh.
So I took lessons from a wonderful man named Butch Lynn up in Catawissa, Pennsylvania. And after a year, I sucked. Like, I had mastered Mary Had a Little Lamb. That was about it. And not the Stevie Ray Vaughan song. Like, that kind of stuff. So I was like, let's try bass. Fewer strings. So I got a bass.
The irony.
Yeah, I know. We'll get to that.
Yep. Stay tuned.
So yeah, I got this really cool precision style bass. It was by a company called Phantom. I don't believe they're around anymore. But the bass was amazing. And, with that, Butch knew that I wasn't into learning Mary Had a Little Lamb, so he ordered me this book that was full of, like, Metallica, Van Halen, Guns N' Roses tabs.
For bass?
For bass.
Okay.
So that was my first lesson book with him, and I love playing bass. So, I played bass in a couple bands in high school over the next few years. And then in my hometown, there was this little, like up the hill, there was this little old lady owned I can't say a music store. All she sold was sheet music. But it was, if somebody from Hoarders had a sheet music store.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was just boxes and crates of things all over the place. And I found a folio book it was called, I want to say it was Guitar, Vocal, and something else. Or maybe it was just guitar and vocal, but it was Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son album.
Oh.
So when you open it, it's just, here's the lyrics, and the music staff was the vocal notes with the guitar chord changes over top. And I know Iron Maiden doesn't use open Cs and open Ds. They're power chords. But with this book and the Seventh Son album, I was able to expand on what I knew on guitar. Through that album, I taught myself harmony, like harmony guitar, harmony vocals, a lot of E minor CD songs, because realistically, a lot of Maiden songs are E minor CD or A minor GF.
The secrets.
Yes, but my guitar playing grew in leaps and bounds with that album, that silly little folio book, which to this day I still have in a box.
Oh, hell yeah.
I even have the official Hal Leonard, like the thick-ass tab book for the album.
Wow.
But I still got the little folio book too, just because that's kind of where it all started. And then, growing up, everything was heavy. Like, again, it was Iron Maiden, Metallica, Anthrax, Kiss, Megadeth, that kind of stuff. And then I moved to Plymouth Meeting, which is over near Philadelphia, because I went to the Antonelli Institute of Art and Photography for commercial art.
Okay.
And I was sitting in my dorm room the one night, and I don't know if anybody remembers the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh,
yeah, Arsenio Hall.
I do, but let's not date.
Yeah, I know.
That was a good show. He was good.
He had a diverse selection of celebrities.
Yeah, he was a little ahead of the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Shout out to Arsenio.
Yeah, Arsenio. But he had B.B. King on as his musical guest.
Whoa.
And up until that moment in my life, like, I had NFTG for the blues.
Which was?
No to give.
All right.
I didn't care about the blues one way or another. Like, and then I saw B.B. King on this show, and I just sat there slack-jawed, like, holy moly, this is what the blues is? And of course it's B.B. King, so you're seeing the top echelon of the blues, and I'm like, oh man. So the next day, where my dorm was right across the street from this huge Plymouth Meeting mall. Went right into the record store. I don't remember if it was a We3 or a wall-to-wall, back, this 91.
Yeah, not this FYE stuff.
Yeah, and I found the newest album, which was called There's Always One More Time. And to this day, that is my favorite B.B. King album, because that was the one that got me into B.B. King.
All right.
And I was just like, okay, the blues are kind of cool. So I kind of expanded my horizons musically. And then I was sitting around watching an episode of, not Family Matters, The Wonder Years. And the outro theme was a solo acoustic piece by James Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
And admittedly, I'm not a huge James Taylor fan, but I was like, so a single voice and an acoustic guitar can sound that damn cool? The next weekend, I came back home to Catawissa, Pennsylvania, and I went to my local music store, which was Schoolhouse Music. A guy named Scott Fritz ran this music house. It was a little one-room schoolhouse, little red one-room. Awesome place, but he had a Fender 12-string acoustic there.
Oh.
And I decided I needed that.
Right.
Not electric acoustic, because, why would I think forward? But I bought this Fender 12-string acoustic and just fell in love with acoustic music at that point. Still
Okay.
playing all the heavy stuff, playing bass.
So kind of got you back into guitar?
Yeah, it kind of got me back into guitar.
So are you saying James Taylor, a single from him, solo acoustic, basically got you back into guitar? And 12-string nonetheless?
For lack of a better way to say it, yeah.
Wow.
And again, I'm not a James Taylor fan, but to
Right.
be able to say, it was a James Taylor song that I heard as a TV show theme, I went out and bought a 12-string acoustic. Because I figured if I'm going to spend the money on an acoustic, why get a 6-string?
All right.
And
That's interesting mentality.
yeah,
I
was
like that.
I could get a 6-string, but everybody I know plays 6 strings.
Right.
So I went and bought a 12-string. And I think other than I want to say I've only bought 2 6-strings since then, acoustics. One was an Ibanez that I played at a lot of open mics when I first started getting started doing solo things. And
Which
the
was
other,
about what year did you start doing solo things?
in 98 to 2001, I was in a band called Blurred Vision, and I was playing bass, but it wasn't necessarily creatively the outlet that I wanted to go. I enjoyed playing bass for them. It was fun. We did a lot of shows, started to gain a little bit of a gathering in Harrisburg, but the kind of stuff, they wanted to write relatively simple material. That way it was just easy to play on stage and run around and have fun, which I'm all good with. But for me, my writing wasn't getting incorporated into that. So I decided that I was going to start hitting local open mics. So probably 2000 or so.
Okay.
And I got this originally I started off with a Stratoacoustic, like the original Stratoacoustics, the ones
The
that
OG.
sounded thin and soulless.
Yep.
And then I got this Ibanez, and it just sounded so much better. And the only other 6-string acoustic I've purchased was at a flea market over in Malvern, Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
Heather and I were checking out this flea market kind of thing, and there was this guy. I called him the Pumpkin. He was just this enormous guy in a bright orange T-shirt, and he's looking at this guitar that's laying there, and he says to the person running the stand, "How much you want for that?" He's like, like $35. He's like, he's kind of like turned up his nose. I was like, I'll think about it. And he wandered away. It's like, all right, I walked over. I'm like, I'll try a guitar. I'm a musician. It's what I do.
Yeah, right.
So I picked up this guitar and I was strumming it, and for an inexpensive, and you could tell it was one of the inexpensive models, but it played really well. I mean, it sounded nice. It was full, and I said, $35. He's like, yeah. And then he had one of those like mini, I don't want to say like a Hello Kitty, but the Hello Kitty sized guitars, like the
Yeah.
micro. He had one of those like for like $50. I'll throw in that one. I'm like, not interested in that one. Like, no offense, I don't need that. But here's $35 for this one. And that guitar I still have. It still hangs on the wall in my living room with a bunch of
nice.
other guitars, and it sounds really nice. And I pulled up the price tag on Musician's Friend the one day, and I think it retails for like $129 tops.
All right.
But I got it for $35. So,
Yeah.
and it's a straight acoustic, no electric acoustic.
Probably
but
sounds all right.
yeah,
Good to have.
yeah, it never hurts. So yeah, in fact, when I started doing open mics, I was very, like, I don't want to say stage fright, but I was just like, it's just me. I've been in bands my whole life.
Right.
It's just me.
Felt a little naked and afraid, if you will.
What I did to cover it up was I had a drum machine. So I programmed drum loops, and it also had a bass guitar part to it. You could go over to pad number 2 and hit bass notes. So I figured out what my 3 songs were going to be, what their tempos were, programmed those 3 songs into the drum machine. So when I went to the open mics, I wasn't alone on stage.
Right.
So I was just like, okay, this song is at 110 beats per minute. Set it to 110. Go. And I started off every song with 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, 3, 4 in silence. I was like, all right. And then I would play. And that got my... I became much more comfortable on stage at that point. And I think I only did that for maybe 6 months tops with the drum machine or some kind of backing track. And then I was comfortable enough to go out and just perform at open mics. And then I started booking shows.